Hello everyone, my name is Ben.
And my name is Micah.
And welcome back to Pass the Podcast, a podcast where last time I forgot to let Micah even introduce himself. I just went on full autopilot and started this off like it was one of my videos. So that's about how we're feeling today. Yeah, I'm kind of a shitty human being. It's just how it goes sometimes. But we're back at it again regardless, here to talk with you all about some brand new music or some not quite brand new music, depending on how brand new you look at 2 weeks ago is. But regardless, we're here with the music that kind of happened since the last ones we covered. And we've got 5 albums to cover for you guys today. We're going to be doing these the same format as last time, but we have one thing to cover that isn't necessarily a new album, and that is the new singles from System of a Down. I've been asked about this a couple times, so we're going to give some thoughts on it.
I am so glad that they came back. These 2 singles, bangers. I love them.
Absolutely. It's been 15 years in the making now.
Yeah, and honestly, it was worth the wait.
Yeah,
Not
these
really,
are really some of the best songs by them so far, and I'm wondering if it's leading up to an album. Do you think so?
I don't know, because I know it was to raise awareness in what's happening in Armenia, but I'm not 100% sure if they'll actually release an album. I hope so. I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful as well, but I could easily, because of the fact that this is raising awareness for what's going on in Armenia, I could very easily see this just being 2 songs that they dropped for this purpose alone, and then they'll disappear for another 15 years.
God,
But, yeah, I thought that it was pretty interesting to see them reunite after kind of the political conflict going on between the drummer and Serge. I'm blanking on the drummer's name. I'm glad they can kind of put differences aside there. So that was kind of cool, I guess. But still weird to see them back together. It's so weird to think about the prospect of a new System of a Down song, but I'm really glad both of these didn't disappoint. I mean, Protect the Land, I think, is probably the better of the 2. What do you say in that regard?
I would say by far, honestly.
It's got that groove and riff the whole way through. It really just feels solid for that reason.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's just fucking slaps, man. And I don't know if you watched the music video with it or you just went on Spotify. Did you watch the music video?
I didn't, actually. I really should, but
I was honestly surprised that the way the video was shot definitely reminded me of Thy Art Is Murder's track. It was Holy Wars.
Holy Wars. Okay, yeah.
It was definitely
it
was that for the military. I was getting those vibes.
All right, that's pretty cool.
I mean, I only listened to it once or twice, so I probably have to go back and take a deeper look, but that's not my first impression.
Yeah, lyrically they're very clear with what exactly is going on in both of these tracks, and I think that stating it very openly and blatantly what's going on really just gets the message across in the way that I'm sure they want to. It's pretty blatantly obvious what they're going for on here, but at the same time, I feel like outside of the context of this event in particular, these could be used as kind of a commentary on the toxic nature of war in general, just because that's exactly what's going on there, but I feel like it will be relevant in the future because unfortunately we will always have war, so there's that.
War never changes.
Yes, exactly. What did you think of Genocidal Humanoidz, just in sound, though?
In sound? It was definitely just another classic System of a Down track. You could just throw that on any of their albums, and I wouldn't know the difference. But I also love every single System of a Down track. Each track's a 10 out of 10 for me.
That's, yeah, same. I mean, System of a Down was one of the bands that, got me into music, along with Linkin Park, Slipknot, all that. They were one of the first bands
Slipknot
that I really got into. Hell yeah, dude. So it was pretty cool to see them back at it again after this long of a wait in between. And, like we said here, hoping for a record coming out soon. But that's what we got to talk about on System of a Down so far. Overall, just some really solid tracks. I think you would agree.
Oh yeah, easily. I would actually, for my rate, what is your rating of the tracks? Your first impression rating?
If I was going to give like an out of 10 rating, I'm going to go ahead and slap a 9 on Protect the Land. I think that this is a really solid kind of rock, hard metal ballad thing they got going on here, despite my really shitty description of it. I think it's one of the most unique system tracks in general, though, so that's cool. And Genocidal Humanoidz, I would go much more along the lines of a 7 with. I think that it sounds a little bit more like everything else they've always done. You could easily put that on Hypnotize. I think it would fit pretty well on that record, but that's not necessarily one of my favorite eras of System of a Down either. So I'm kind of mixed on how that one sounds, but lyrically they're both good. So how about you?
Hypnotize was my favorite album, so like personally I would give Genocidal Humanoidz a 9, and I would give Protect the Land a 10. Whatever. Homicidal.
You would give Protect the Land a 10, you said?
Yeah.
That's fair. It's a really good track. Yeah. I've already said it too many times, but good to see them back together. So next up is Ariana Grande with Positions. You said you had some very interesting things to say about this album, and I want to hear what it is that you've been getting at. So why don't you talk on this album?
Alright, so first things first, this is the horniest album I've listened to this year, and we had Dorian Electrica last episode.
I can't say that I agree. That one, the Dorian record was super spicy, dude.
That one's more aggressive. This one's just like,
that's fair.
Just sheer horniness. Like, it's vanilla, don't get me wrong.
It's very vanilla. That, you know, that kind of that kind of sums up Ariana and Dorian pretty well.
That's fair. It's like the Mormon kid that just can't. Some of you won't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I was surprised. I have never heard an Ariana project, so I guess everything's new and a surprise. But I saw a Ty Dolla $ign feature. I was on the safety net. I didn't know that Ariana was collabing with Ty Dolla $ign. The Weeknd was he was on Off the Table, and that was an amazing feature. I fucking loved that track.
Yeah, that's the best one on the album.
The duet aspect, that was easily. I love that track. The seamless feature, the production, everything was there. Like, I will actually go back and listen to the track again, and I've never heard an Ariana Grande project and didn't really plan on it up until this point.
I want to ask you a question real fast,
just
not to cut you off, but do you realize how much shit Ty Dolla $ign features on?
No.
He features on everything, dude. An album barely comes out that doesn't have Ty Dolla $ign. He literally called his last album featuring Ty Dolla $ign. He is very aware of what he's doing.
I love that he's like, I get paid, so I'm just gonna...
I mean, he was totally phoning it in for that record, and that's why we didn't even bother talking about it. But
he phoned it in on this feature too on Safety, and I feel like I missed his feature the first playthrough. I had to go back and find it.
Dude.
It was boring. It was a boring track. It'll go on the radio though. Like, out of like all these horny tracks, that one will definitely be on the radio.
For sure. I feel like there is some radio stuff on here, but
it's Ariana Grande. You gotta put radio stuff on here.
Yeah, and that's not usually even a bad thing in any way. I usually think that her catchy tracks are, you know, like a positive. If you're coming to this kind of music, you want some catchy hooks and stuff, but I thought that it was missing a lot of the catchiness that I've heard in a couple of her other albums. I think the choruses at times were too simplistic, and they didn't really grab me in the way that a lot of, you know, catchy radio pop songs would, especially her, you know, I'm comparing it to her last album here, Thank You Next. Almost every song on that album, looking back at it, I can think of the hook on it. It was very memorable, but I mean, maybe you have a different take on the choruses. How did you feel about that?
I only remember one chorus, and that was the one that was like, shut up, shut up, shut up. I only remember that one.
That one was really irritating.
I kind of liked it. Like, it could have been worse. I definitely would have to agree with you on the lack of catchy choruses, but I feel like she was going for more like, just like a late fall, early winter romantic album to just be there, I guess. I don't know why I released that now, but
I feel like
it's
it's kind of R&B direction more so than some of her poppier stuff. Like, it almost just gives me that kind of feeling. She almost has a little bit of like hip hop influence going on this album's lyrics too. So I have to give it that it's going in a different direction than some of her stuff, even though those influences always have been there. But a little bit stronger on this project, I would think.
Now that you mention it, I do feel the R&B vibes, and it's not a bad thing. I definitely enjoyed it. I definitely like this album.
Yeah, her track 7 Rings was probably the biggest indication of that she's had in her career so far, but there wasn't really anything else on Thank You Next that was anything like that. Whereas I feel like we had some kind of braggadocious lyrics and that kind of shit going on here and there. So that was cool.
Overall, what's your rating of the album?
One more thing I want to mention is why did she have to do all the sex puns? It pisses me off. Just like it keeps constantly happening.
It's the horniest album. It's like the
Dude,
kids.
I know, but just it's not like Megan Thee Stallion kind of horny where it's just like very out in the open. She just keeps making innuendos and shit. It pissed me off.
She was on
34 plus 35, dude. What the fuck?
She was a child actor. She's got to have the innuendos.
Tell Miley Cyrus that.
Oh yeah, never mind.
I mean, I feel like she's much less on the raunchy side of things than Miley Cyrus, but still, I don't know. I feel like she had to go full send a little harder on it, but is what it is, I guess.
I like this album for what it is.
Yeah, for what it is, it's okay. But what it is in my eyes is definitely one of Ariana's weaker projects. I really like Thank You Next, but this one probably feeling like a weak 6 on this, I guess.
A strong 6.
Strong 6?
Strong 6, maybe.
But you liked it so much better than me.
Maybe a light 7. I know, but like, I don't know. There was a bunch of tracks where I'm never going to listen to again. Like, there's only a handful of tracks, but I like the album as a whole.
Oh, and what was the lead single? Oh, was the Positions. Positions was the lead single. Did you notice how much better that track is than all the other ones?
Yeah.
I forgot to mention it, but it's so good. It's got like the little string loop going on there. It's got a catchy chorus. It's fun to listen to. That's what I was hoping for from the rest of this album, and I didn't really get it. So yeah, favorite track for me is pretty obvious at this point. I already said it was Positions. Least favorite for me is West Side. I feel like that track did nothing. I don't remember what happened during that track. I just remember it not being memorable. So I suppose in the most literal sense, it's just unmemorable.
My favorite track was My Hair. It's an absolute banger. Really jammed that track. My least favorite track was Obvious, because I don't remember it also. There was a few,
Yeah, there's a couple like that.
And I think we found them.
I mean, it's not that long of an album either, so it doesn't really have room for filler. That's kind of where it was at. But
the forgettable tracks is why I gave it a 6. Otherwise, it would have been a 7 or an 8 if every track was a little bit better. Not by much, but just a little bit.
Yeah, dude, totally. Yeah, I think that's all we got to say on that one, though. So
moving on to the next album, we have fucking Emergency Tsunami by Nav.
Stupidest title I've ever heard for an album. What does that mean? Let's just ponder on what an emergency tsunami is. Does that mean that
it's a weaponized tsunami, bro?
Does that mean that they're having an emergency, so they're calling a tsunami to happen?
Fucking Godzilla or some shit.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Oh my god.
Doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever.
What collective is Nav part of again? Just remind me.
XO. He's in there with The Weeknd.
Yeah, this is Nav in that collaborative. Is their mom was like, you gotta bring your little brother along if you want to have a rap collaborative. And that's why Nav is there. This every single track, every other track is the same track. There's 2 tracks in this album, and he just copy pasted.
I feel like there's only one.
Nah, because it's a different producer tag, so it's a different track, I fucking guess. I mean, shit,
That's the same
right.
producer though. He just has two different tags. It's all Wheezy. Wheezy did all of the production on this.
Weezy did a bad fucking job. Weezy needs to do better.
Wheezy did better than Nav on this, but only a little bit, and that's fucking saying something. That's really saying something.
This production with a better rapper, I could maybe handle it. This album is the lyrics are not creative at all. It's just like, I can't remember any of the fucking lyrics.
There's some ridiculously bad shit.
Yeah. My brain pushed it out. It was like, nah, man, you're gonna kill yourself if you listen to this album anymore.
Yeah, and
couldn't take it.
Talking more on the production side of things, because I feel like the Nav side of things is pretty obvious what we're going to be critiquing about it. But the production side of things, Wheezy has done some okay stuff before. He has produced for a lot of rappers. I mean, he was all over the last Future album. He's been on a lot of stuff by Future, I'm pretty sure. He's been on a lot of like Young Thug projects. I think he's been on other Nav stuff, for example. He's all over the place. He's one of the biggest producers in hip-hop right now. I'd say he's kind of up there with like Metro Boomin. But I feel like this dude is so fucking overrated. I mean, there's not really a good beat on this entire thing. I feel like a couple times it feels like there's some good loops happening, like there's some cool samples, and then it just goes away and it just goes to a sterile trap beat.
It feels like you went on YouTube and looked up fucking, I don't know, Future type beat and found the first one.
Yeah, what ended up being a really awful song on here was Droppin' Tears, and that was one of the ones that I guess I thought was one of the examples where the opening part of the song was somewhat captivating. You know, it was like, okay, this beat's kind of cool. You know, it was what it was. It was like, all right, this sounds decent, but then that sample just goes away and it just becomes a sterile, boring ass rap beat, you know? It's so basic, and so is everything Nav does on here.
He had, I don't know if you heard, but he had features. The only feature I was able to actually recognize was Lil Baby, and I still haven't heard any of this stuff, but it's like the one rapper I recognized. What were your thoughts on the features on this album?
So, Lil Baby on here sounds more like Young Thug than Young Thug sounded on here. So, that's a thing, I guess. Young Thug sounded fucking compressed and like he just didn't want to be there at the same time. He was mixed in there really shitty, and he also definitely didn't want to be there. So that was cool, I guess. Gunna's delivery is somehow more infuriating than Nav's is. I cannot stand the song Young Wheezy, and the fact that they dedicated a song to Wheezy on this project because, you know, he's producing the whole thing, whatever. I really wish that he would have actually brought a decent fucking beat to the table for the song that was dedicated to him. That was an interesting part. Lil Keed, I feel like didn't do anything. And Sabibi or Sababy, I'm not really sure what it is, how that's pronounced. Sababi? I don't know. I'm looking at the name right now.
Yeah, same. I don't know. It's not English.
Yeah, I've never heard of the guy, but I really liked his vocal style. But his lyrics were so god-awful dog shit that it ruined any kind of small level of enjoyment I possibly could have gotten from that feature. So, and I don't remember Future even... Oh, never mind. I'm looking at the bonus version, not the regular version. So I can't really speak on that Future verse because I was not listening to a bonus version of this. So yeah, how are you feeling on those features?
I didn't realize there was features until I got to Don't Need Friends by Lil Baby. I heard a second voice and I'm like, hold on. It's not just Nav being bad.
Yeah, right. Nav is doing the same thing he always has without missing a single beat. He sounds robotic, boring. He has the same singular flow that he's always used. He has no subject matter. He has god awful similes all over this. Man is trying to spit bars, but he is only spitting dog shit, man. Did you notice the similes? Because it's starting... It really started to like grain on me, as well as another thing that we'll discuss. But yeah, his lyrics were fucking awful.
So for all of our listeners that know who've played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, I can compare Nav to OG Loke in that game. Just the shittiest rapper that people somehow dick ride a little bit.
Yeah, he has fans. Kind of he has number one albums. How does this happen? How do we let this shit happen?
Nav seems like the kind of person that spent 30 days in the county jail for an eighth and was like, "Nah, I'm hard."
Yeah, dude.
I'm a rapper. Look at me. Look at me go.
Nav is terrible. This project might be his worst ever. There's no redeeming qualities. 0 out of 10.
I gave it a 1 because I heard a second voice and I'm like, oh, hey.
Yeah, Lil Baby is just doing a Young Thug impression, so I'm good on that too.
What's your favorite track on this album?
Nasty, I guess. I mean, it portrays itself like a love song, but then it just ends up having really trashy lyrics, so I kind of wish it was just a love song, and then it would have been like the only tolerable track on here, but it's the most tolerable, I guess, relatively speaking. How about you?
Mine's Don't Need Friends.
Yeah, I thought that one was pretty fucking awful.
It is.
But I thought they were all pretty fucking awful. Least favorite for me... Oh, sorry, what?
No, you go.
The least favorite for me was Do Ya Deed, because of those Sababi... maybe it's Sababy, I'm not really sure. Those lyrics on there, even if he sounded pretty good, it was vastly overshadowed by his extremely shitty lines that he repeated, I think, 3 times on here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I wrote those down, because I feel like I did. No, I didn't. But I'm not going to, because honestly I'd probably feel awkward reciting them anyways. So those are fucking terrible. And then Nav is just doing Nav things on here, and the beat is garbage. So
my least favorite.
That's mine.
All right, sorry, I cut you off. My least favorite is going to be the Young Wheezy with Gunna. It was track 2, and I already wanted to shoot myself.
3. Well, 2 outside of the intro, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But
it's the second real song.
Yeah, and I was like, wow. I don't know if it can get any better than this, and if it doesn't, I'm just gonna uninstall Life.
Yeah, dude. May as well at that point.
Yeah. All right, so moving on. Oh God, I don't want to move on. Trippie Redd's new album, Pegasus. This thing wasn't like an hour long.
It's an hour and 14 minutes long, and that is...
I'm looking at the track list right now. It's too many. It's too many tracks.
That is probably 45 minutes longer than this album needed to be. Legitimately speaking, it honestly, probably could lose over half of its length and be fine.
It's probably an hour and 14 minutes too long, to be honest.
So, I'm going to have a hot take. My take is going to be real nice and toasty here. This ain't even that bad. It's really not. Like I said, it is probably over half of its length too long, but I didn't even mind it while it was on.
I tuned out too many times trying to get through this album because it's one track. It's one track with
You're
friends.
right. There is a lot of the same stuff. However, comparing it directly to Emergency Tsunami, which I guess I did listen to these back-to-back to be absolutely fair, there is so much variation in comparison. I guess just seeing the lowest of low that trap can possibly get, I looked at this and went, wow, there's actually a fair bit of variation here. And prior to listening to this album, I did like Sleepy Hollow. I think that track is a banger. It still is in the context of the album. I may have been half asleep while getting to that point of the album because it was really boring me and it was kind of late. However, Sleepy Hollow came on and I was absolutely vibing because it's a banger, all right? And that's just how it will stay, I suppose. I think that the one main track that he presents here, because really, let's be real, it kind of is that way. There's a lot of these spacey beats that become love songs, and I feel like that was kind of the main focus, but I kind of give him credit for not just, like, terribly sexualizing a love song, because I feel like that doesn't happen enough. And while it comes across a little corny every once in a while, most of the time he's not doing that. So, a little corny, I guess I'll take it over cringeworthy. That's a thing, I guess. And these spacey, kind of airy, just open sounding beats that sounded kind of sci-fi or whatever, that's a combination that I don't mind. So the fact that it was on here about 20 times, that's not even an overstatement. I would say at least 15 of these songs that are pretty much the same way. I don't mind it, but I could have done for about 3 of them instead of 15.
Yeah, it's he's definitely beating a dead horse with this album. It's not the worst thing I've heard. I know my first take I listened to this and the Nav album, and I hated this album. But then I went back and listened to it again after hearing Nav, and I would honestly have to agree with you at every point. It's spacey, it's weird, but it's not. It's repetitive too, but it's not the worst in the world. There's worse albums out there.
Yeah, it gets way worse than this. We know that.
I've never heard Trippie Red's project, but I feel like he could do better. Oh yeah, we've learned. I feel like he could do a better job here. He could have taken more time. If he wanted to make an hour-long album, he could have taken more time to refine more of the tracks.
He absolutely could have done better, and that's kind of the shame about it, is that he has a lot of potential that he's not living up to, and instead he's making this massive hour and 15-minute long album that didn't need to be the way it is. I say this almost every time an album is at this length, especially in the genre that Trippie Redd is in, because it happens all too much in this genre. If they cut it down half of the length that it is, at least half, you could do more than that. I would be totally fine with this project being 30 minutes. If you took all of the effort that you put into these songs that didn't play out well and just made those not exist and then put effort into the better tracks, this would have been a really killer album. Okay, this wouldn't have necessarily been like one of my favorites of the year or anything, but if we had a bunch of tracks that are like Sleepy Hollow, I mean, hey, it would have been a really good record, honestly.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. I don't have a ton to say about this album, though. Past that, what was your overall rating?
My overall rating of this is 4 out of 10, which is actually boldly above the average. So
I gave it a 3.
I don't know. A 3 is probably pretty typical on this. How about least favorite and favorite for you?
My favorite, I would think this is yours too, is Sleepy Hollow. It's the only track that really stuck out to me. My least favorite, I don't know if I can choose. There's a lot of forgettable tracks, but I would probably have to land on The Nether. Because it's the one track that I can remember, and I remember I don't like it a lot.
I felt like that was one of the first ones that really didn't do it for me. I feel like, especially there was that opener, there was Moonlight and all that, like, in the first front end of the album. And yeah, The Nether was kind of where it was like, oh, all right, well, this is going south. For me, favorite track, again, Sleepy Hollow. I've said it like 10 times already. You know what's up with it. And least favorite track was easily TR666. I don't like Sway Lee. I feel like I have made my dislike of Sway Lee clear before, but it's definitely a thing. I just don't think that he ever provides a very good performance, and this is absolutely no exception because he's terrible to listen to on this here track, and Trippie Redd does nothing either. So really, it's just kind of one of the worst ones because it's both forgettable and painful to listen to while it's on. And it really exemplifies the problem that I didn't really mention about this, in that all of the bad songs are at the back end. Like the worst ones, which just really shows you how bloated this project is, unfortunately. So I feel like that's all we really have to say on that one, right?
Yeah, I think we can move on to the next album, Bring Me the Horizon's new EP. Not an album, it's an EP.
Almost an EP.
Almost an album.
Almost an album, yeah.
Post-human survival horror. What's your thoughts on this? I'll let you take off.
Oh my god. So, I'm a big Bring Me the Horizon nerd. Everybody knows that by now. I've heard everything by them. You've had the experience of me bugging you to listen to Bring Me the Horizon, even though you didn't really like them in the past. I'm sure you can talk on that, because that was definitely a thing that's happened before.
I like their first album.
Yeah. Going back to the Deathcore Kid discussion of the last episode, that was certainly something you would have been into at the time.
But Wash His Dick was my jam.
Yeah, as a kid who grew up listening to Linkin Park, obviously That's the Spirit is what hooked me. Let's be real here, that would be the only real answer. That and Sempiternal as well. But they have done some extremely interesting things since That's the Spirit. Amo was incredibly interesting with what they decided to do with it. It is their most pop-sounding project to date, but it also had some, very experimental ideas that they just had going on in there. There's one heavy song on the record, and it's making fun of the fact that people want them to make heavy songs. They clearly were just defining their own path, They were saying that they're just going to continue doing whatever they want to do outside of even just going from a deathcore to a pop rock band. Then last year we saw the EP that is called Music to Do a Lot of Things To. It's a super long title. I believe there's about 20 verbs in that title. Either way, that one was extremely experimental, and it was very weird. That is definitely my favorite EP of last year. I thought that it was a pretty incredible listen just because of how immersive and strange it is, especially that track Underground Big on there. Super weird. Loved it a lot, though. That one was really cool. So then coming forward, it is so hard to know exactly what Bring Me the Horizon was going to serve up next. They did say that they were going to essentially just be doing a series of EPs, and much like the last one, this feels more like an album than it does an EP, but I can get to where they're thinking it more feels like a collection of songs than it does feel like an album. This is crazy. This is a mesh of all of the best things that they have done their entire career. It's all put together in the best kind of ways on this album. This is a very clear demonstration of, like I said before, all of the good parts of their previous eras and none of the bad stuff. Every negative of Bring Me the Horizon is completely non-existent on this album. EP, sorry.
I think it's safe to say to call this EP a victory lap of sorts. Like, they know what they can do, they know their range, and they're just letting us know that they know.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily try anything new per se on this album. I keep saying on the album, it's an EP. On the EP that we have here. But what they did do is try something new by bringing together everything they've done before. There's some really heavy stuff that gives you the vibe of their earliest stuff, the Pray for Plagues kind of era, the, there's some Diamonds Aren't Forever kind of sounds going on. Gives you those earlier track vibes, is really what's going on that front of things. But then you have some very clearly pop rock choruses going on as well. I mean, Teardrops is one that certainly stood out to me in that way. And you have just about everything in between. The track Kingslayer, outside of the Baby Metal feature, I guess, really sounded a lot like some Sempiternal era kind of shit that they did when they were kind of in between the heavy and not heavy stuff. I think that this was a crazy experience. So I guess that's some overall general thoughts on this. What did you think of this album just in general, this EP? I Did It Again.
I like this EP a lot. I was definitely, the features kind of surprised me. I didn't realize, like, Youngblood was on the track Obey. Who's Youngblood and why is he on everything?
He's the new Hot Topic mascot.
Alright. Really? Is he?
Like, not literally,
is he the guy in the shirt rack now?
It's essentially that scene of things, like the
right.
Not emo as a genre, but emo as an ideology kind of guy right now. He's the MCR for the new kids, basically, and he's a little bit rap influence, a little bit like pop punk influence. He's kind of got that whole thing going on. He worked with MGK, and then MGK ripped him off.
Well, MGK is.
Yeah, that Baby Metal feature. How about that?
Oh, yeah, I was about to bring that up, man. Fuck yeah, dude. I have heard some past Baby Metal projects, especially when they started getting big in the mid-2010s, and I was a fan. I was way more of a fan than I thought I was going to be. Like, hell yeah, dude. The energy on the track Kingslayer, fucking radical, dude. I can't... Dude, it's... I almost said dude like 1,000 times just because of how cool... It was such a cool song.
It's pretty cool, dude.
It was pretty cool, dude. It was pretty cool, dude. Yeah, I saw it.
Pretty cool, dude.
It's just such a cool track. The chorus was there.
Yeah, the mesh of the two vocal styles especially going on there. You're right, the chorus was very much so there as well.
That song like made the album for me. I was like, hell yeah, Bring Me the Horizon's good again. And then...
They absolutely showed up for that one.
Yeah, they put the effort in. I could tell that they tried.
Yeah. The Amy Lee feature on the last track is the only other feature we haven't talked about yet. Oh, never mind. There was Nova Twins on One by One. I thought that was the worst one, just in that it didn't fit very well. I think that the attitude that she brought to that first verse wasn't necessarily fitting, but...
I would have to disagree. I personally enjoyed that track. I thought the clash of the two made for a really interesting sound. I actually didn't like the Youngblood feature.
I think the Youngblood was okay on here. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of him like most of the time, but I think that he really meshed with their energy. Whereas the feature on One by One, or is it One Times One? I'm not sure which way I should be saying that track.
It's both.
Yeah, One Times One, I guess, whatever. I feel like the feature on there didn't mesh with the energy that Ollie was serving up on the vocals of that track, especially. But overall, I just didn't think it was one of the more memorable ones in general. So, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on that track, but how about that Amy Lee one?
I didn't really have any opinions on it. I was just vibing with it. It didn't really pop. Like, the closer of the track wasn't the worst track on the album, but it was definitely one that it felt like a fitting end, if that makes sense. Like it was just there.
It feels like a closer, but I don't know if it feels like a closer to this album. But despite that, Amy Lee's performance is great. I mean, she's a really good singer.
It's an EP, Benjamin. That's why it's a.
We're gonna do that so many times.
That's why you can't really call it. That's why I'm mixed about the closer, because I know that it's not a traditional album and EPs are just songs. So the numbering of like which track goes where doesn't really matter. But I still can't help.
My only issue with thinking that way is the lyrical content of everything else. I think that everything else on the album felt very 2020. It was all about the quarantine stuff. It was all about the political conflict. And it all felt extremely relevant to the negative feelings that I think we're all feeling at the moment. And then that last song just is basically a breakup track, I think, as far as what I got from it.
The last track title, by the way, for those who don't know, is One Day the Only Butterflies Left Will Be in your
chest as you march towards your death.
Fucking titles, though. Like, I had it on my Spotify.
That's some
scroll,
early
like
Fall Out Boy kind of titles right there.
Some edgy shit. You think he wants you for your money, but he only wants you for your leopard print. I can't do it. I tried.
Leopard skin pillbox hat. What's the rest of that?
Oh, fucking love Death Grips. Make a new album, damn it, so we can review it.
Yes, absolutely.
Make a new album every day. Just a good
album. I think that everything on this album up until that point felt very connected and put together with each other, and that's the only reason that's the only thing that I find not fitting about the closer, even though, like you said, it's an EP, it's a collection of tracks, and maybe it's not supposed to be conceptual like that at all.
It's not an album, Ben, it's an EP.
Yeah, exactly. So
overall rating? If you don't have anything else
hold
to say
on.
about it.
Hold on.
Then.
We didn't talk about Dear Diary.
Oh shit, we
did
forgot
not
Dear
talk about
Diary.
Dear Diary.
That was a banger.
Absolutely. That is one of the best Bring Me the Horizon songs ever. Easily. That's an 11 out of 10 track right there. That really brought to the light kind of this paranoia going on during the quarantine that we all have been facing, I feel like. And it really came across to me as relatable outside of the ending where our narrator just seems to have lost their fucking mind completely. That was a scary track to listen to, but a very fitting one nonetheless, I gotta say.
Spook goals a little there, Ben? A little
yeah, dude.
Spook.
I mean, it's a little bit too real, if that makes any sense, you know? And I can say that for a lot of things in this album. It's EP!
EP! It's
this EP. It was all very real, and just felt like it was representing exactly what's going on in the world around us. It's for the Cure is another thing I want to mention, because it's a Linkin Park reference, because there's Cure for the Itch is kind of the electronic interlude on Hybrid Theory, so I feel like Itch for the Cure is a nod to that since it's the 20th anniversary and it just like happened. You agree with me?
I don't know anything about Linkin Park, so yes, I guess I agree with you.
Okay, I think it's a reference. I wanted to make a nod to that quick too. Yeah, I feel like that's all we have to say. I have a whole review on Parasite Eve. It was a reaction. Did that a while ago when I was still really doing individual song reactions. That was a really great track as well, really talking about the pandemic. So yeah, that one was good as well. Anything else you got to say? Favorite track and least favorite track for you?
Favorite track? Fuck yeah, Dear Diary, dude.
Dear Diary? Same.
It's a 6.66 out of 10 to be an edgelord. And my least favorite, I would have to give it to Obey.
Obey? Yeah.
It was a hard pick, really hard pick, but that's what... I like Obey. I don't know.
It's not one of the best.
It didn't slap as hard as everything else did. It could have slapped a little harder.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I kind of need to give a few more listens to 1x1 because I feel like it could grow on me. It's currently my least favorite, but I feel like that could definitely end up switching to Ludens. But that's mostly just because I've heard that song a lot of times. That song has been out since early 2019, I think. And tell me if I'm Mandela affecting right now. If anybody in the comments wants to let me know who's hearing this. I don't remember him saying the word Ludens anywhere on the track. I thought that instead of every time that came on, he said leader. And Ludens was just the name of the track. I don't know if I'm Mandela affecting right now.
I think you're Mandela affecting. You're smoking crack, dude.
Yeah, I know, but I remember when it was a single, like a year and a half ago, practically. Not a year and a half, but about a year ago, when it was a single, I just remember him saying leader and not Luden.
It could have been changed. We'll go back and listen to it, actually.
I did. I went back, and it was Luden the whole time. I don't know. Maybe I was just tripping at the time.
You're probably just tripping doing that fucking DMT. To MDMA.
Doing them crack rocks. Overall, out of 10 rating for you.
I would give it 8 out of 10. Easy. Hard 8.
Yeah, it's a 9 for me. I'm very, very excited about this thing, obviously.
Yeah, you're
this
just
is going to be on replay, and then replay again, and then replay a couple more times. It's easily my favorite. Yeah. it's easily my favorite EP of the year. No questions asked. I don't feel like I've listened to very many EPs. And it's kind of a shame that I can't really group this with the albums, but yeah, it's definitely my favorite EP I've heard in recent memory. So that's pretty cool.
I'll give it that. I'll give it the best EP that I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, it's been years since I've heard an EP that even comes close to touching that, but that's probably because it feels so much like an album when you really listen to it all. That's kind of my one gripe, just to throw it out there. I think that if they added like 4 more songs, it definitely wouldn't have felt bloated and it would have just been an album at that point. But I understand their current vision is to just kind of be a rolling stone. They're rolling with the punches, just kind of taking no time with any kind of sound and just doing as much as they can in limited amount of time. That's, I think, what the vision is right now. They're trying to move on from sound to sound and do different stuff. That's why they're all EPs.
If this was an album, might have given it a lower rating than I did, if I'm being quite honest with you.
You know, it is pretty instantaneous and just punchy for the reason that it is pretty short, I guess. So, yeah, taking it for what it is, yeah, really great stuff. Is that, if that's all we got to say, Oneohtrix Point Never with Magic Oneohtrix Point Never is the next one to talk about.
Holy shit. This thing takes, on first listen, I listened to everything back to back, so it was 4 hours of music, and I was like, just wanted to kill myself, because this was the last thing I listened to. And I went back today and yesterday and listened to it again, and I love this album. It's got like, it's really spacey. Feels like you're listening to a sci-fi movie, and every track just flows into each other. The production is amazing. I love the way his voice sounds. I was surprised. I'm not a huge fan of I don't know, is that technically auto-tune?
Yeah, it's very heavily auto-tuned.
People fuck that up too much. Yeah, people fuck up effects way too easily, but this guy, Oneohtrix Point Never, did an amazing job here. This is my album of the month so far, and it's only 12 days in.
Yeah, I mean, we will end up doing another batch of albums towards the end here, but as we're nearing the end of the year, less and less albums come out as we get closer to December, so it's probably going to end up being your album of the month. But then again, oh yeah, Dorian was last month. Okay. I was going to say.
Yeah, it was a hard choice between Dorian and Open Mic. This is definitely a contender for album of the year.
So for me, I really liked this, but I don't think it was quite as above and beyond as you seem to be thinking it was.
Well, that's why you're fucking wrong.
I guess my take on this is, yeah, I had the same experience as you, where this is really trippy. It just kind of takes you up in the clouds, all right? This album felt like I was, just like, I'll use again, just floating above the clouds for an entire day. And it was like just this brief 47 minutes. And when you just walk away from this album, it's like, oh yeah, that wasn't very long, was it? But it just feels like this endless psychedelic bliss while you're listening to it. It's so good to just space out to, and that was something I really liked about it. It really felt immersive the whole way through, and it really gives that kind of psychedelic experience it's going for sure. I like that there are a lot of albums that feel like drugs without doing drugs, because it kind of gives you those feelings, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was never bored at all during the song either, which...
No, definitely not.
Never bored. Definitely Tame Impala type beat, just on quality and production.
That brings up a point that I really wanted to make. So this feels to me like it is stuck in some middle ground between Cosmogramma by Flying Lotus and Currents by Tame Impala.
Oh my god,
that
yes.
is where this album just sits. and I wish that it would go to one side or the other.
No, you're wrong, man. Because it feels like those two albums had a baby, and it was beautiful, and it was this.
Their baby's kind of weirdly deformed. Like he's that kind of like strange kid in the back of the classroom that looks a little weird, but when you talk to him, he's really cool.
Yeah, it was you. Yeah. You're this album.
I'm this album. Yeah, definitely.
You're that fucking weirdo I met in shop class all those years ago.
Yeah.
Wearing that System of a Down shirt.
That is absolutely... Yeah, System of a Down is how we met, isn't it?
Yep,
yeah,
it is.
So that's kind of coming full circle here.
Oh, hey,
right, well, that's
shit,
cool.
Dude.
Yeah, because we covered System in this.
Now we can stop.
Yeah, not now. Oh, all right. It's come to full fruition. But either way, so I feel like there's some songs on here that are very definitively songs. You know, I think that I can give that to I Don't Love Me Anymore. And what was the song with No Nightmares? The song with The Weeknd, who is killing it with the feature game lately. I think both of those are very definitively songs. And everything else just kind of sits in this no man's land of being album ambiance. There's a couple more on here. It's just that I don't necessarily...
I'm going to expand on an earlier point. This is if Flying Lotus and Tame Impala had a baby and it was raised by Brian Eno.
That does make sense. And its childhood friend was Slouse and Malone's last album.
And
Not the last album, the first one.
Its a childhood friend was just an acid dealer.
That too, yeah.
Like he only sold acid, not mushrooms. Then no other psychedelics, just acid. That's all he knew.
Animal Collective is a friend of a friend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah, then, for sure.
And then Mac DeMarco is the kid that bought him beer.
Yes. Absolutely.
I love this family that we're making. That's.
You know, it really does feel like all of those things, though. That's actually kind of accurate.
And I love almost everything that we mentioned. So everything coming together and the production, he did such a good job. I'm impressed. I'm so impressed.
I'm impressed too, because before this point, I just knew Oneohtrix Point Never as a hip-hop producer. I don't really know what stuff from him I've heard before. I just knew that he does a lot of like hip-hop beats that are on some popular songs. I mean, the last time I specifically remember hearing him was on the remixes of After Hours. He remixed one of those tracks. It wasn't particularly a great remix, but so, you know, I was still keeping an open mind regardless, though, because he's definitely had some good production in the past. It's just that examples weren't really coming to mind. I wasn't really expecting him to put this much cohesion into an album. I was kind of more expecting something along the lines of like a beat tape with some songs on it.
Yeah, that's going into this after what you told me a little about the artist before I listened to the album. That's exactly what I expected too.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this to be as cohesive and front to back an experience as it is, and it really is just a singular experience.
Yeah, it's up there with the Neutral Milk Hotel. What's another album that you have to hear? That's just an experience.
If we're gonna go back to our last example, I feel like Currents by Tame Impala is kind of like that. But you can take any song on that album and listen to it individually.
So that's not really. I wouldn't give it.
But I feel like you could do the same thing with Neutral Milk Hotel. But
it doesn't.
I don't
fit,
know.
Though.
Let's
it
see.
Feels wrong.
Yeah, something.
I mean, Communist Child and maybe King of Carrot Flowers Part 2. You could put separate, but everything else has to go together.
King of Carrot Flowers is a banger, dude.
King of Carrot Flowers is a banger, dude.
There are definitely albums like that you're supposed to hear front to back for sure, and I'm not
blanking
really
on them.
Yeah, but you get the idea of what you're feeling here. Putting this album on shuffle would be a fucking sin.
Oh, jeez, if you do that, I'll personally come into your house and castrate you. Do not breed if you do this.
If you put this album on shuffle, there's something fucking wrong with you. Because, yeah, the transitions were pretty good. I remember you saying something about that. Transition. Yeah.
So any of the points to make, or can we move on to the rating out of 10?
I don't have anything else to say about it if you don't.
No, I think I've said everything I have to say.
All right, so favorite and least favorite for you?
My favorite song is No Nightmares. That weekend feature was I didn't that weekend feature. These weekend features are gonna make me go back and listen to Blinding Lights. That's the album name, right?
Yep. No, After Hours is the
After
name of the
Hours.
album. Blinding Lights is
the track that I like.
the song.
Yeah, I will go back and see if I like the album now that I've become more familiar with him.
Yeah, this isn't like his best work, these features. I mean, he's cool on here. I really like his appearances on everything. He makes every song I've heard him on better, but
It was it's hard to pick a favorite and least favorite out of this album, so I just gave it to the feature. And my least favorite is gonna have to be Shifting. I don't remember if there's a feature. Let me check. There was never a feature on that. And it was the third to last track. I don't know. It just didn't hit as hard as the rest of the tracks do. But it's supposed to be the coming down point of the album, so I guess maybe it's not a fair pick.
My notes of this, that song in particular is much more intimidating, eerily trippy, but exciting. And then much later in the song, I wrote, "This got me feeling all kinds of fucked up." It was really like the come down from the trip. Yep. I feel like that song, but it's a little bit less enjoyable because the come down isn't very fun. So you got that much going on.
But I didn't dock points against the album for that track because I knew what it was trying to do.
Yeah, it's just not that fun to listen to. Yeah.
Which unfortunately kills 10 out of 10. So I did take points off, but whatever.
Right, yeah. My favorite is also No Nightmares. I really love the Weeknd appearance on there, as we already talked about. I like it for all the same reasons as him. Such a vibe, that track.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Least favorite is Tales from the Trash Stratum. I
like
think that track is a fucking disaster.
You can't give it the least favorite.
What is going on?
It's Tales from the Trash
I get it. It's intentional, but it's so not fun to listen to.
I enjoyed that track. Ben,
it's such ear rape.
Unsubscribe because Ben has bad opinions.
Yeah, man.
But then resubscribe because I'm here.
I thought that track was pretty much just ear rape, but maybe that's just me, I guess.
I'll go back and listen to it, and I'll still tell you that you're wrong, regardless of what I feel.
Yeah, and I'm not counting the cross... What was it?
Crosstalk 3?
Crosstalk? Yeah. I thought that Crosstalk 3 was just fucking pointless, but I'm not counting that because those were basically just interludes.
That's why I knew it was Crosstalk.
But if I was going to count them, then my least favorite would be Crosstalk 3. There was no reason that track even had to be there. It was just existing.
So what was your rating out of 10?
8.
I give it a 9. Light 9.
You give it a 9? Yeah, you do seem more enthusiastic than me on this one. I thought it was good.
You give it an 8. I thought you were gonna give it a 7. See, you're the 8s.
You know, it's like a 8- for sure.
8-, 7.5.
A weak 8. Yeah, 7.5 is a really good way to put it.
This is an 8.5 for me. So yeah, I guess we're. It's about
all right. Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
I believe that is all the music we have for today. So, if you love it, leave a like. If you have any suggestions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comment section, and we'll read them. Probably.
Yes, we will.
Ben usually
or
does.
At least I will. And
I lurk.
He might be asleep.
I always lurk on them. I don't comment anything because I'll say some stupid shit. So just ignore all of my comments.
Yeah, that's very possible. But either way, we will see your feedback below, of course.
Also, let us know how the audio is. I just put myself in like a new room, put a sock over the mic, call it a day.
Hopefully we can get that all established as well. But yeah, that's all we got for you today.
We love you.
Yes, we do. Bye.
The recording